Putin is continuing to advance into Korea.
When did we beat Japan at anything?
To disperse with 30 bullets within half a second. 30 magazine clip in half a second.
Right now, if you Google the word idiot, a picture of Donald Trump comes up. I just did that.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Political Circus Weekly podcast. I am your host, Mike Ursery, and you are listening to episode number 26. So, depending on where you live, are you feeling a difference in the weather? And I say depending on where you live because if you live in the Northeast or in the upper Midwest, you are still experiencing winter. Yes, snow is still dumping on you, and I gotta say my heart really goes out to you because I remember last year, here in Missouri, we really didn't have much of a spring. It was cold and snowy up until May, and then it got hot. It's like we went straight from winter to summer. So right now, everybody's experiencing that. I'm sorry. I know it sucks. I'm sorry. Everybody else who is experiencing spring, are you starting to feel a difference in the weather outside? The sun is shining. It's warm. Trees are blooming. And days are just getting better. I know I'm enjoying it anyway, because as you've heard me complain so many times during the winter on this podcast, complaining about being freezing, complaining about how it was snowing again and how there was ice everywhere, and saying so many times how miserable I was. I cannot stand winter at all. If somehow they were able to take winter away and we just had 3 seasons instead of 4, I would be okay with that. Because winter is awful. I don't care what any winter enthusiasts say. Winter is bad. But now winter has moved out. It's warm. Baseball has started up once again. And got a little bit of rain. It happens to rain. It's April. April showers bring May flowers. Everyone knows this. But pretty soon we're going to move from spring into summer. It's going to be hot every day, but hey, my opinion, being hot, way better than being cold. I don't care if, you're hot, you can't shed layers to try to cool off. Unlike wintertime where you can put on layers to get warm. Yes, I know. Hot weather is still better than cold weather. I don't care what anyone says. The only drawback to this right now, because most things have a drawback, the only drawback to this, my allergies are going crazy again. It happens every spring. My allergies just go insane. Sneezing, my eyes are watering, I'm coughing, nose is stuffed. Sometimes I get sinus headaches. It's pretty bad, but that'll pass. And I won't deal with it again until next spring. But we're not here to talk about me. We're not here to talk about my allergies, and we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here for the same reason we're here every week, because we're going to talk about news, the news of the week. And this week, the biggest news of the week has been that the Mueller Report was finally released. It's redacted for reasons that were explained to us, although some people are still throwing a hissy fit over that, thinking that, if it's redacted, it's because something's being hidden and they don't want us to see something. No, there is grand jury testimony in there that pertains to things that are still ongoing. There's investigation still ongoing. There's personal information that they had to redact. People are ridiculous. Attorney General William Barr laid out the 4 reasons for why, and he said ahead of time that there's stuff in this report that will be redacted, and laid out the reasons why, but that just wasn't good enough for some people. In fact, you have, one of those congressmen, I think it's Representative Nadler, I think is his name. He subpoenaed all of the information from the Mueller report because he wants to see everything. And you have Democrats in Congress who want the entire report to be open to the public. You know, most of the people in Congress right now have been there for a long time. They understand how investigations work, and they already know they already understand why that information is redacted. They know why it's redacted, and they know it's not going to be revealed. And like, because of the reasons why. But they're just grandstanding, which is really the main objective of people in Congress anymore, on both sides. Not even Congress, but like, you know, White House too. Grandstanding. Grandstanding, grandstanding, grandstanding. Rallying up the base, getting people excited, getting people angry. That is what they do best. So this report is out now, and this thing is like 440 pages, thereabouts. I have not read the entire thing. I've read the first few pages of it. I'm probably not going to sit down and read that entire thing. I'm probably going to let pundits say over and over again, who probably didn't read it themselves, but they are still going to give their own opinion of it. But I'm going to be upfront with you and tell you that I have not read this entire thing. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I have. And the thing that I want to do on this episode is I'm not really going to go over the report itself. I mean, yeah, I can go over some of the things, like, for example, you know, Donald Trump was found to have conspired with the Russia government to influence the election and swing it in his favor. However, the report found that there were 10 instances of possible obstruction of justice. Mueller detailed in the report that he was not able to indict him on any counts of obstruction of justice because there just wasn't enough there. However, he did say that the president was not exonerated, and he left it up to Congress to decide. And this is where we are now. Yes. Look, for anyone who thought that once this investigation ended and once this report, or rather the findings of the investigation were revealed to the American people, for anyone who thought that this was going to stop after all of this happened, you are terribly wrong. No, this is not stopping. This is not stopping for a long time. It is going to keep going. We have an election coming up in 2020. This is going to be one of the biggest issues during that election, is whether or not Donald Trump is guilty of obstruction of justice. If Donald Trump is reelected, I think he will be, but I can't see into the future. But if he is reelected, this will go on for another 4 years. This is not stopping as much as I wanted to stop, because here we are in 2019. Donald Trump has been in office for a little over 2 years. Folks, I'm tired. I am burned out, and I have been burned out on all of this for a long time. I've been burned out on Russia. I've been burned out on Trump. I've been burned out on Robert Mueller. I've been burned out on impeachment. I've been burned out on all of this. I certainly want this to stop. I know a lot of other people do too, but it's not stopping. No, the circus is not stopping. The show must go on, and it will go on. It will go on, but it's just going to go in a different direction, because now they're no longer talking about collusion because, well, they can't, obviously. So now they've moved on to obstruction. The Democrats have moved on to Donald Trump obstructed justice, and he did it 10 times, and the president committed a crime, therefore he needs to be impeached. First of all, for everyone who is saying that Donald Trump needs to be impeached so that we can get him out of office, you do realize that just because he's impeached doesn't mean he goes away, right? Okay, if he's impeached, he's impeached. Impeachment has happened before. Look, let's go back 31 years. Let's go back to the year 1998, when Bill Clinton was being investigated for doing stuff with Monica Lewinsky in the Oval Office. I'm not going to go into details about that. And then he was investigated for it by Kenneth Starr. He lied under oath, and he was impeached for it. Impeached for lying under oath, which is a crime. After he was impeached, he went before the Senate. And the Senate, which was a Democrat majority, voted to censure Bill Clinton. Now, anyone who's not familiar with censure in Congress, now, first of all, there are no legal repercussions from it. It's basically Congress saying to or not Congress, but the Senate saying to the president, we're very disappointed in you. We do not approve of your behavior. We're not happy about what you did. And that's it. So that's what happened to Bill Clinton after he was impeached. He was impeached by a Republican majority House, was censured by a Democrat majority Senate. Now let's look at the way the government is right now. Let's say that the Democrat majority House impeaches Donald Trump, and then he has to go before the Senate, because that's how it works. The House impeaches, the Senate tries. So let's just say he's impeached by the House, he goes before the Senate, and the GOP majority Senate looks at Donald Trump and they say, we're very disappointed in you. We don't approve of what you did. We want you to stop that. Don't do it again. Smack on the wrist. If the Democrat-led Senate could do that to Bill Clinton, who was impeached for obstruction of justice, do not be surprised to see a GOP Senate do that to Donald Trump, who potentially could be impeached for obstruction of justice. But back to the report itself. Now, along with accepting the fact that this is not going to stop, but it's going to keep going, the other thing to understand here is that now that this report is out, no one's mind has been changed on anything, especially on the left. On the right, well, people who support the president, why would their mind change? Because they were confident all along that he didn't collude with the Russian government, and now it's been revealed. So why would their mind change? But never Trump conservatives and other people on the right who did not support the president in 2016, their mind also did not change. On the left, their minds definitely did not change. No. In fact, there are some people on the left who still insist that there is evidence out there that he did collude with the Russian government. And they think that the evidence just has not been found yet. But they still think that he is a Russian agent and he's in Putin's back pocket and all this other stuff they said for 2 years. But they need to let that part go. It's over with. There was no collusion. Robert Mueller did this for 22 months, 500 witnesses, 500 search warrants, 2,800 subpoenas, and $30 million of our money. For 22 months, he did all of this. Talked to 500 witnesses. He talked to 500 people. People who were directly involved with the Trump campaign, people, and a whole bunch of other people. He was not able to find any evidence that Donald Trump colluded with the Russian government. Let it go. Let the collusion narrative go. Let it die. It never should have been a narrative to begin with. We never should have done this investigation. We never should have spent $30 million in taxpayer money doing this investigation because there was nothing there. But they're going to bring up the people who have submitted guilty pleas and people who've been arrested and put in prison and all these people do this stuff. Yeah, but that had nothing to do with Donald Trump's campaign. Yes, there are people in his campaign who were doing some shady stuff with Russian people behind the scenes, but it had nothing to do with Donald Trump's campaign. And then, of course, there might also be people who might say something like, well, they were spamming ads on social media and they did a lot more for Donald Trump than they did for Hillary Clinton. Well, do you wonder why that is? Look, if Donald Trump didn't collude with the Trump campaign and there was no conspiracy between Trump and Russia, why do you think that is? Could it be maybe because, maybe because Hillary Clinton was the heir apparent and Donald Trump, at least in the world of politics, I'm not talking about being a campaign donor. No, I'm talking about actually being in politics. Donald Trump had no experience and was practically a nobody. Donald Trump was a celebrity. Back when he first announced his campaign, he was a celebrity. He was not a politician then. He had a lot of name recognition, but that's because, one, he's insanely rich, and two, because he's on TV. Like, the guy had his own reality show for a while. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the only other entertainment personality to ever be president was Ronald Reagan, and he at least got some experience by being the governor of California before running for president. But Trump didn't do that. No, he ran solely on his own name recognition. I would also argue that the reason why the Russians would have did this is because Hillary Clinton is extremely polarizing. The right cannot agree about Donald Trump, but the right can agree about their feelings about Hillary Clinton. Everyone on the right sees Hillary Clinton as someone who would be a terrible president. Clinton is viewed on the right as this power-hungry war hawk, and no one on the right, regardless of how they felt about Donald Trump, no one on the right wanted Hillary to be president. And one thing that Mueller said in his report was that Russia sought to interfere in our election because they wanted to sow civil discourse and get Americans fighting with each other leading up to the 2016 election. Now, that was already going to happen anyway because American media was going to see to it, but it turns out that American media had some competition. It was the Russian government. Maybe that's one reason why they're so upset, because they felt like they were being outstaged. I don't know. But if you want to sow more civil discourse in America, well, then all you got to do is get the right riled up, who had already been living under 8 years of Barack Obama, and they were faced with the prospect of 4 to 8 years of Hillary Clinton. If you want to get people angry, well, that's the way to do it. You got to promote the opponent, and you got to do some anti-Hillary stuff and some pro-Trump stuff and get the people shouting. I'm pretty sure Russia has been watching America long enough to understand how that works. And that brings up one very important question. Is Russian interference the reason why Donald Trump won the election? Well, in my opinion, yes and no. The president won by a really large margin. That's one thing that makes his win so shocking. Not just that he won, but that he won big. So I do think that this, the Russian involvement in this might have helped him to win as big as he did. Would he have won the election? Look, despite all of the meddling they did, despite everything they did on social media, despite all the propaganda they put out, I don't think it changed anyone's minds. I think people already had their minds made up about Hillary Clinton, maybe not having their minds made up about Donald Trump. All this information that was released, not really the propaganda aspect of it, but like all the emails that were released by WikiLeaks from Hillary Clinton and John Podesta that might have influenced some people to vote for Donald Trump just because maybe they learned some things about Hillary they didn't know before. But I do think that even if there was no Russian interference, even if there was no WikiLeaks dumping emails, if there's no propaganda, anything, I think Trump still possibly wins the election over Hillary. Even if Hillary does win, the election is close. But with another election coming up next year, the question Democrats and their supporters are going to be asking is, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again? Well, the first thing you do is you put up a candidate that does not suck. Unlike 2016, when you put up a candidate that did suck. This time, get a better candidate. That's your first thing. That's your first step. That's the first thing you need to do. Get a better candidate. One, that's not Hillary Clinton. And she's not running this time. At least she hasn't said she is. So we're good there. But as far as making sure that Russia doesn't interfere in our election again, I think maybe we'll be a little more prepared this time around. I think that people will be looking at things a little more closely, a little more carefully to see if it is by chance propaganda from a foreign power. But I do think the Democrats will have a lot more to worry about this time around. They have things to worry about that do not involve Russian interference. For one thing, you have a power struggle within the party that is leading to a civil war between moderate Democrats and Democratic Socialists, particularly Bernie Sanders and everyone who is like-minded with Bernie Sanders, and then the old school rank-and-file Democrats led by Nancy Pelosi. And that power struggle probably does cause a lot of problems for them leading up to 2020, especially since with this primary coming up, I think you're going to see, especially after Joe Biden jumps into this race, I really think you're going to see factions being formed between the moderates and the Democratic Socialists. You already have for one thing, you have some Democrats like Kamala Harris who is towing the line of she does not want to be labeled a Democratic Socialist. She's even said she's not a Democratic Socialist, yet she is adopting some Democratic Socialist policies like Medicare for All. She said she wants to do away with private insurance and she wants it ran completely by the government. She has voiced her support for the Green New Deal. I do think that you're going to see other candidates doing the same as well. If they don't want to be labeled as Democratic Socialist, but they do want to adopt that platform, I think you're going to see a lot of line towing, and you might see some rifts in the party, especially when it comes to endorsements and whenever they decide ultimately who do they want to put up against Donald Trump. And as for Donald Trump, Mr. President, get off Twitter, first of all. Get off Twitter. Stop tweeting. Look, I understand that you're upset. I understand that you've been through a lot in the last 2 years that you shouldn't have had to go through because this whole thing was not true, and yet they drug out this long investigation over it. But whenever you are going on Twitter and you are actually typing out total BS, saying that this investigation was total BS, look, that's not a good look. And look, I get it. He wrote out a cuss word, and the only people who are really upset by it are the people that don't like him, and they get upset by every single thing that he does. But still, just look, carry out your term, do your campaign, try to get reelected. A lot of people really want to move on from this, but we're going to need you to move on from this as well. But there's a lot of this left over. It's not going to stop anytime soon, like I was saying at the beginning of this. Like already you have Trump and people in his corner talking about they want to investigate the investigators, meaning they want to investigate the people who started this whole thing. Not necessarily investigating Robert Mueller, but investigating people who started this whole Russia narrative and saying that there was evidence of Russian collusion. So who knows what that's going to be. You have William Barr saying that he thinks that Trump's campaign was spied on, and he wants to launch an investigation into that and find out who it was and why they did it. And then you also have people like Adam Schiff who just will not accept the results. And, you know, Kellyanne Conway did an interview with Fox News on Thursday, and she said that if Adam Schiff has evidence, he needs to go ahead and bring it forward. And Kellyanne Conway is totally right on that. You won't hear me say that a lot of times, but she is right about that. Yes, if he does have evidence, like he says, he needs to bring it forward. If he's just grandstanding and getting his own voters excited, then, you know, it's just a bunch of hot air and empty words. If he has evidence, bring it forward. And as for the Democrats wanting to impeach Donald Trump for obstruction of justice, yes, Robert Mueller did say that he is not exonerated, but at the same time, he also said that he was not able to come to the conclusion that Trump had committed a crime. So take that into consideration. And like I said before, even if he is impeached, nothing is going to happen to him because the GOP majority Senate is not going to find him guilty. If anything, they're either going to find him not guilty or they're going to censure him, and nothing's going to happen to him. And if you think that Donald Trump getting impeached hurts his chances of getting reelected, of course not. Look, Donald Trump said himself a long time ago that he could murder someone on Fifth Avenue and his supporters would still vote for him. And yes, that is actually true. So yeah, if you think impeachment is going to damage him, no, if anything, it's going to embolden him. It's going to embolden all of his supporters. So yeah, just let this one go. If Trump does get reelected, let him do a second term and then Democrats start over again. But that's probably not going to happen because, like I've said many times on here, all they have to do is not be insane, but they can't do it. They're going to drag this out for the rest of this term, and then if he gets reelected and gets a second term, well, who knows what they're going to do. So, yes, we're all burned out on this. We're all tired. We all want to put this behind us. We all want to forget about it. We all want to move on, but they're not going to let us do that. So we'll see what happens next week, and I'll be right here again talking about it. But until then, thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Political Circus Weekly Podcast. And like I've said before, if you like this podcast, hit the subscribe button, give me a rating, leave a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. Anything I'm not doing that you'd like to see, let me know. Always looking for ways to improve this podcast. So, thank you so much for listening. I will see you next week.
Thing sucks!